My name is Barbara Phillips, Executive Director of Community Network Council. We're hosting a series of self-care, progressive self-care for students, families, for the community at large. And this one tonight is very important because we know that our children and teachers have been struggling since COVID, dealing with various issues. And so we thought it was important to reach out to David Radford at KM and to help coordinate this event tonight. And I think it's very meaningful and important, very pertinent for each individual, each parent to be well aware of some of the strategies that can help children. So with that note, we're going to turn it over to David Radford, the principal at KM. And then after David, Melvin Tate will introduce our speaker for tonight. Thank you.
Barbara, thank you very much. My name is David Radford. I'm the principal of Kent Meridian High School. I want to say thank you to the Community Network Council for reaching out and offering to partner to share information and engage our community about this very important topic. I also want to quickly thank Lisa Helson for partnering with us as well to share this information tonight. You know, this is such an important topic for our community right now. So whether on this this meeting, you are a student, you are a parent, a staff member, a community member, we're so thankful that you're here so that we can help get information out into the hands of our students in our community. And then also to help normalize conversations about mental health so that our students not only have information, but feel more comfortable coming forward to get the help and support that they need. So once again, thank you for being a part of us, part of the work that we're doing here tonight. And I'm so thankful that we do have these community partnerships because it takes all of us to help raise our children. So thank you to the CNC again. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Melvin Tate.
Thanks, David. It's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Helson, who graduated from Central Washington University with a degree in criminal justice. For the past 20 years, Lisa has been working with youth in juvenile justice. Her passion lies in making sure youth are getting the help they need to thrive in a community where they historically face trauma in their neighborhoods, their homes, and in their schools. The resilience of the young people she has worked with and currently works with is truly remarkable. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa now, and she's going to do a 35, 40-minute presentation, and then we'll have opportunities for discussion after that. There, take it, Lisa.
Okay, hi. Yeah, thank you for coming. And I want this to be open. So if anyone does have a question about something I'm saying or something they would think was helpful, just go ahead and break in. And also, this is my first online presentation, so I apologize for any issues with the computer. And I know some people use the hand raising thing. I can only see 4 people at a time when I'm presenting, so just bust in there. Don't worry about hand raising. So let's see if I can get this going. Okay. And can everyone see that? You have thumbs up?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, so like Melvin said, I started my career in juvenile justice I worked at Echo Glen, which is like a youth institution out in Snoqualmie. And it's for boys that are about 11 to 15 and girls that are 11 to 21. And I worked there for 4 years in the boys acute mental health unit. So the boys I worked with, they had histories that the trauma they faced was, I'd say, in the top 1% of a trauma anyone could face. They had sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, neglect, foster care, homelessness, parents in prison, parents that had passed away or were unknown to them, discrimination or being ostracized. There was not one that I can think of that came from what would be considered normal, happy childhood. And some of them had, a lot of them, actually I worked in acute mental health, so a lot of them had mental health issues, trauma issues. But what I think interests me most is they were so resilient in that they managed to live day to day, which when I put myself in their shoes, I have a hard time imagining how they can go on. Because I came from middle class, very normal, no abuse, nice family. And when I hit 12, I started suffering from my own issues with depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation. And I dealt with that into my mid-30s. And I never reached out to a professional or anyone. I just kind of thought I should power through it. And eventually, as an adult, I did seek help, and I now look back and wish I'd gotten that help at 12 instead of 33 or whatever, because I could have had a little bit more quality of life if I'd just reached out and let people know what was going on. So let's see. During the pandemic, well, not during the pandemic, but in general, 1 in 5 teens have a serious mental health disorder. And 49.5 adolescents, 13 to 18, currently have a mental disorder. And suicide is the second leading cause of death among adolescents 15 to 19, which I found to be a pretty upsetting. Many youth are taking their life before they even have a chance to live it. But during the pandemic, 140,000 youth in the US have experienced death of a parent, grandparent, or caregiver. And youth from racial minorities have had 4.5 times the risk of losing a caregiver. In addition to the illness and the death, families have lost jobs. Community programs have been on hold or shut down. And during this whole time, beyond what we dealt with the pandemic, there's been a huge rise in racism and xenophobia to make matters even harder. And between March and December of 2020, mental health emergencies rose 31% for kids ages 12 to 17. And there's also been a 50% increase in suspected suicide attempt emergency rooms among girls 12 to 17 in early 2021 as compared to the same period in 2019. Some of the signs of distress, if a young person is facing anxiety, depression, or possibly suicidal ideation, changes in mood that are unusual, which it's kind of hard to see in teens sometimes because irritability is not that uncommon. But if it's a large shift, going feelings of hopelessness, rage, a lot more conflict, changes in behavior, such as stepping back from personal relationships. So if the young Sorry. Hello? Am I muted?
Apologize. That was my fault. Yeah, you're good.
Oh, okay. When they are stepping back from their normal personal relationships, if they were really outgoing before and all of a sudden they're in their room sleeping all the time, not texting or chatting or doing things they used to do. Loss of interest in activities previously enjoyed. a hard time falling or staying asleep, changes in appetite, weight, or eating, problems with memory or concentration, loss of interest in schoolwork, changes in appearance or hygiene, increased risky or reckless behavior, or thoughts about death and suicide. And these, just the things I'm going over right now, these are ways, things you can say, ways you can deal with youth, or it doesn't even have to be a youth. It can be anyone in your life. This is not just things that our young people are going through. It's things that all people are going through. But the biggest thing I think is to let them know you're listening. Make sure they know what you're saying. Don't push it off. Don't make it for later. That you know that because they're telling you, they're serious about it. So one thing, say, I'm so glad you're telling me about this and what's been going on and how you're feeling. Thank you for sharing with me. Show your support in whatever way is comfortable for you. Make sure that you know that you're in it with them and that you care about them, whether it's I'm right here now with you. Nothing you're going through will change how I feel about you. That's how awesome I think you are. I love you no matter what, and we're going to get through this together. Encourage them to keep talking and be an active listener. Let them know you want to hear more about what they're going through. Express curiosity and interest. Validate them, like, wow, this situation sounds really difficult. Or how did that make you feel when that happened? Ask them about changes in their life and how they're coping. Find out how long the person's been feeling this way. Has it been a day? Has it been a month? Has it been the last year? And what changes it's caused in their life. So by asking, like, how long have you felt this way? When did this start? Have you had any specific changes in your life, like sleeping or trouble sleeping or keeping up with work or school or friends? Have you been getting out much? Are you isolating yourself? I think obviously now teens are being able to get out a little bit more, but things are still kind of weird as far as what you can go do for your leisure time. Being direct is fine. It's not an issue. It's not something you need to walk on eggshells around. If you think someone's thinking about suicide, trust your gut and ask them directly. Research shows that it will not put that idea in their head or push them into action. And they're often actually relieved to know that someone is seeing that there's an issue. It might be kind of an old thing where you think, oh, if I ask them, then they're gonna ruminate on it and then they're gonna want to do it. That's just been shown to just not be how it is. So straight up asking, are you thinking about killing yourself? That's not a negative. You can also ask, does it ever get so tough you think about ending your life? Do not sound like you're passing judgment, like you're not thinking of doing something stupid. Obviously, that's going to invalidate the kids' feelings that they're having. It's not stupid to them, it's their life. And then this one interested me, the don't guilt trip them, don't think of what it would do to your parents. I didn't really know that was a negative until I read this. Because with me, when I was having these feelings, that's kind of the thing that kept me going, is I didn't want to hurt my family. But it's just not what they need to hear. They need to hear about what is in them, not who they're going to affect. Reassure them that you understand and care. Let them know I really care about you and I want you to know you can tell me anything. And if they're actually thinking of killing themselves, you need to stay calm. It's not a time to freak out. Just as calm as you can stay, as long as they're not in immediate danger. Take the time to listen to what they have to say, how often they're having the thoughts. When it's really bad, what do you do? What scares you? What do you need to do to feel safe? Reassure them that help is available. And these feelings are a signal it's really time to talk to a mental health professional. One thing you can say is the fact that you're having these thoughts tells me something significant is going on for you right now. The good news is help is out there, and I want to get you connected to the resources that can be there for you. Follow their lead and know when to take a break. If the person's not ready to talk, forcing them is not going to help the issue. It might be really hard in the moment, so you can step away. You can ask them if they're okay talking about it. You can make a time to talk about it later. Sometimes the emotions are just too much to get out what the feelings are right at that time. Suggest how they could benefit from a professional. Obviously, if you're not a mental health professional, if the person you care about has told you they're thinking of suicide, it's a warning sign that they really need to speak with someone that's trained. You can say stuff like, I hear you're struggling. I think it would be really helpful for you to talk to someone that can get you through this. You know, therapy isn't just for serious clinical problems. It can help any of us process the challenges we're facing. I mean, tons of people go to therapists, though the stigma is, oh, sorry, Melvin.
No, you go ahead. I can wait till you finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
The stigma still exists. I think it's getting a little better with time, but making sure they know it's not just people that have tremendous issues that go to therapists. Anyone can get help from talking to someone. And the thing is, talking to someone can at least give you perspective and maybe stop things from continuing to get worse.
Yeah.
And what did you have, Melvin?
Yeah, so I'm glad you got to that point about talking to a professional, because we don't want students to, think that they're counseling.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't want them to like go too far. And then, in my experience, some students may be uncomfortable anyway. So it's a matter of a level of comfort that, say, a student might have, or even an adult may have. And so I'm glad you got to that point, and to at least make sure that they knew that they should be trying to get to an adult and a professional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think talking to your friends is good. My own experience with that is my friends were going through similar things and had their own things they were dealing with on their plate. That's why a mental health professional is just there for you and doesn't bring their own life into it. So talking to friends is great, but yeah, talking to a professional that can help you work through it is, I think, the ultimate goal.
Thank you.
Just making that first contact with a professional can be the hardest. Like I said, I was probably 33. So, and as a youth, as a 16-year-old or something, that can be really tough. Even now, right now, my job is to set my youth up with professionals in the community. And man, is it hard to get them to that first appointment. Even though they were getting professional help when they were in the institution and got used to it, it's still hard for them to meet a new person. And if they meet the right person, because the first counselor you go to is not always going to be a good fit for you. So offer them to help them connect in whatever they're comfortable with. A lot of the insurance agencies now have kind of like care coordinators that can help set you up. Or you can, I'm most comfortable looking things up online. And if you can take them to the appointment, I find that's been the best for me. It's been hard during COVID because I don't really see my my clients I work with anymore. It's most of the things are over the phone or Zoom, but COVID, I would always drive them to their first appointment. So they had someone they kind of knew with them,
Yeah.
and that could debrief afterwards.
And then, you know, the school counselors could be a resource also.
100%.
Yeah, and you know, someone that they already may have a relationship with, and
Yep.
so. Mhm.
Yeah, I don't talk a lot about it, but my stepdaughter's had some of the same issues I've had, and the school counselor was her first point of contact that got her. I was lucky at her high school that's in Seattle. They actually had almost like a behavioral health clinic in it, with a psych and not a psych, but a therapist and a drug and alcohol counselor. And then they were able to hook me up with an outside place under my insurance. So I think that is the first point is huge. It was very helpful to us because kids don't always necessarily want to tell their parents what's going on. Let's see. And if they're in immediate danger, you got to stay with them. That's not a time to take a break. You want to make sure nothing's around. Obviously, I mean, whether it's prescription drugs or other drugs or lethal means. The young people that I work with, unfortunately, often have lethal means around them in the form of guns. So it's huge to remove them or remove that object from them. There's the National Suicide Prevention Line. There's also a lot of youth, and me in general, I love texting. I don't enjoy talking on the phone. So a lot of places have text now, like this, the crisis text line. And in the end of this, there's an entire list I have of every number available to them, or every website. So that'll be at the end. So you have a list. So when I worked at Echo Glen, we had just had 2 completed suicides, one at Echo Glen and one at an institution we had called Maple Lane. It was extraordinarily upsetting to everyone involved, from the person that found them to the other kids watching the action going on to their families. Just the worst thing that can happen. And we switched our entire program to kind of follow dialectical behavior therapy, which was originally meant for women that were borderline, but it tends to be a therapy that the tools they teach can help almost anyone. And they're relatively simple to learn, whether you're a kid, whether you're an adult. So I'm just going to go over a couple things that you could share with someone that's having and it doesn't have to be suicidal ideation. It could be if they're depressed, if they have anxiety. These are just skills that can help them in the moment, because getting through that one moment where you can work on them later is super important. So DBT is based on mindfulness. We kind of have two things going on in our brains. We have our rational mind that's logical and uses facts and we're focused. And we have our emotional mind where logic kind of goes out the window and emotions are what make you react. Neither of them are bad. They're both good. They're both something you need. But if you are able to work with them together, that's the best state to be in. Because no one wants to have no emotions, but no one wants to have no logic and ability to focus either. So those two together are what you're kind of trying to put together. And my favorite skill with DBT that I tend to use in my own life and is really easy to teach to others is DBT skill accepts. Accepts is just an acronym. All the skills in DBT have acronyms. And I'm just going to go through. The nice thing about accepts is there's so many to choose from that you can choose the skill that works for you. Some skills might mean nothing to you, whereas another one is really helpful. So the first skill of accepts is activities. Making yourself engage in an activity when you're having a mental health crisis, or not even a crisis, but you're just feeling down or anxious. Forcing yourself to go out and do something is huge. When I've been anxious during COVID, I've been working from home for almost 2 years, and I moved out to the country. So my number one activity is, there's some horses that live a couple miles from me, and my activity is to walk 2 miles and feed them carrots, and that will just change my mood no matter what. And the thing about doing an activity, you're probably never going to regret it. Like, you rarely regret, oh, I shouldn't have gone on that walk. You know, usually walking is a nice calm thing. So whatever the person you're speaking with likes, most of us have some sort of activity. I wouldn't say like playing video games is like the most awesome one, just something that you can really get yourself into that will focus your brain away from whatever you're going through to something else. Contributing, I think, is also another great one. If you're having your own issues, giving to someone else that's having issues, helping the community can really turn your mind. One thing our office has done, because we have a lot of kind of secondary trauma of all the kids we work with, and we see far too much that is really hard to take home with you. So one of the things we do as a group is we go to food, what's it called? I'm thinking Food Line, but that's not right at all. It's a giant food bank in South Seattle, Lifeline. And we go for 4 hours and we sort vegetables, or we sort cans or whatever. And it's just, not only do you get out of your own mind by doing an activity, but you know in your heart that you're helping, that you're making someone else's lives better too. So that's a pretty cool one. And I mean, you can find all kinds of, all you need to do is look up King County volunteering or Kent volunteering, and you can find something pretty cool to do. Comparison's an interesting one. It's not for everybody. There's 2 ways of doing a comparison. You can compare your current life to someone that's doing worse. Like, I could be depressed. I'm low on money. I'm feeling, you know, whatever you're going through. And you look at, well, this person in Sumas, their house is now underwater. So if they're able to deal with their house being underwater, I can deal with my money issues until I can get them under control. Or you can take a part of your life that was really tough and say, hey, I made it through this one situation 3 years ago that was the worst thing I've ever been through. If I can make it through that, I can make it through what I'm going through right now. So that's, I actually talked about this in my staff meeting yesterday, and a lot of people were giving examples of how they use this one. Emotions is a great one. If you just sit in your bed or on the couch or wherever and ruminate and ruminate and ruminate on your issues, it's rarely going to get any better. So one thing you can do is just do something that makes you feel better. If you love dogs, look up dogs on, like, I look them up on Reddit. I have about 20 sites with different animals that I look up, and it cheers me up, because during COVID, all I want to do is read about COVID and read about the, you know, racial stuff going on, read about this, and it would just drive me nuts. So I switched over to look at animals, and that is a lot healthier. Sometimes it's what you're going through is so intense that you just need to, if you're able to, push it away for the moment and come back to it when you can deal with it. That was something we dealt with a lot in the institution I worked in. Was we used a skill called radical acceptance, which means you just, okay, having an issue, you accept that you're having that issue and you can't deal with it at this moment. So you put it aside until you have a chance to deal with it in a way that works for you. It's a rough one to do. And thoughts are a little bit like activities. If you can do crossword puzzles or Sudoku, or maybe video games work in this instance, just stuff that can distract you from the issue until you're in a calmer mind where you can deal with it. And sensation, we always joke at work because they always talk about self-care and they're always like, take a bath, take a bath. So it's kind of funny I use this picture because I think it's kind of a joke. Baths are great for some people. Some people don't even have bathtubs, so it's not always the best one. But there's my sensation that I like is petting my dogs. My little one is like the softest dog in the world, so that always makes me feel better to have her in my lap and pet her. But it's whatever you like, whatever, if you like being out in the wind or taking a bath or whatever can change your senses. So that is DBT accepts. Really easy to teach. As you can see, it's not rocket science. It's something I think anyone can do. And it's good to practice it when you're not in your emotional mind, so that when you are in that mind, you can do it later. The biggest thing is to talk to someone. This is a tough one. Like I said, I had a hard time doing this in my own life. So you got, you know, your parents and your friends and your family, and you've got the school counselors and you've got teachers and mental health professionals. If you don't feel comfortable talking one-on-one or something with a face-to-face with another person, there's a ton of helplines. My stepdaughter utilized the King County helpline several times, which I was really proud of her for, because sometimes it's easier to talk about what's going on with a stranger because you know they're not going to judge you or they're not going to bring their own issues into it. They're just going to pay attention to you. So if you can't talk to someone in your life, talk to someone on the phone. But like what Melvin was saying, school counselors in my stepdaughter's case were key to her getting connected with the people she needed to get connected with. And I was really impressed with what they were able to come up with in a short amount of time. So these are the numbers I was talking about. We talked about the National Suicide Prevention, the crisis text line where you can just text because so many young people are much more comfortable doing that, or old people in my case. King County Crisis Line is great. A couple of people I worked with while they were getting their masters, they worked for that. Teen Link, I think, is really interesting because it's completely run by teens that have been trained. They are between the ages of 16 and 20, and they've been trained, and they're available from right around 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. You can phone or you can text. I'm super impressed by that. I had not heard of that earlier for some reason. And then 211, you can call, you can email, you can text. And the 211 is, you know, a wealth of information of places you can get help for. Some of the organizations I use in King County, Kent Youth and Family Services, which I'm sure is connected to Kent Meridian High School. And they have a 4-month DBT group, which I think is really cool because it's always kind of upsetting that the only way the guys I work with get DBT is by getting in trouble. I think it should be open to people before they get in trouble. So that's cool. And a lot of these other places use DBT as well. They also, King County has about 7 or 8 agencies that provide something called WISE Wraparound. That's one of my biggest jobs, is to connect my kids with wraparound services. And that gives you a whole group of people to support you. You have your counselor, you have your peer counselor, you have your parent partner, and it's based on what you work on is what you choose. So it's completely, if you're having issues with school is the number one thing you're going to work on. If you're having an issue with depression's the one thing you're going to work on. You can, all of these places do it, but if you want more info on WISE, you literally just Google WISE wraparound King County, and you'll get everything you know. And let's see. And that is what I have.
I have a comment.
Okay.
You know, I kind of like the idea of texting, you know, because oftentimes people can say things, say in writing, in a text or an email, that they, you know, don't say or don't feel comfortable saying, say, in person.
Yeah.
So that could be a way to like break the ice, you know, a text or an email or something like that. So I like that idea.
Yeah, I do too, because through the years, I'm just not a phone talker. And because when you're texting, you can get your whole thought out. You're not going to be interrupted, and then they can get their whole thought out. So I really like that as well.
So any questions of Lisa? Any comments?
I actually have a question.
Okay.
Hey, this is Aubrey. So, you know, with today's kids, you know, they're exposed to, you know, social media. They're exposed to, you know, a lot of inputs from outside their family, outside of their school, out, you know, people they don't know, people who don't really have a vested interest in their well-being. Do you have any strategies, or have you come across any strategies to help with, you know, our kids and their online presence, and to notice any signs that, you know, that's negative at some point, or that, you know, our kids are being bothered by online connections that we can't really monitor in person?
I wish I did. The kids I work with are the ones that people don't want their parents, whose parents don't want their kids talking to, pretty much. And then with my own stepdaughter, we've had numerous incidents with online stuff, and we're at a loss because her mom would refuse to monitor, and so we couldn't be there for it. So I think that's huge. I am very thankful I didn't have social media when I was that age. It was bad enough going through that in real life. I remember in school, kids used to write notes rating people, and you'd see a note and you'd get all zeros. And to me, like, social media is that times 100. So I wish I had an answer for you. Social media is kind of the bane of our existence in juvenile justice.
Thank you for that.
So what about laws? You know, like, so are there laws that say give kids the authority to make their own decisions, say, around these types of issues, mental health issues?
Absolutely. Yes, the law is once you're 13, you make your own medical decisions, and that includes mental health. I sit on the King County CLIP committee, and what we do is when kids have extensive mental health problems, we look at if they're right for in-house psychiatric care. And if they're over 13, if they're not agreeable to it, nothing. There is a way to go to court and have it done, but it is a lot of work. So we prefer when kids are willing to do that. So it can be pretty troubling when you have, say, a 16-year-old in your home, and not only can you not help them decide what medical or behavioral care they need, but their behavioral person can't talk to you without a signed HIPAA. Even I can't talk to a client's parents if they don't sign something saying that I can.
You mean
Um,
a 13-year-old?
Yep.
Boy,
It's, yeah, like I understand the freedom of, the ability to carry your own information, but 13 is, you don't have a whole lot of life experience. So it's a kind of odd age to me.
yeah. So I don't want to dominate here. So, if anybody
But
else has anything to ask.
There was a question in the chat. Can these methods apply to middle school children also?
Oh, absolutely. I think the younger, the better, really. Like you saw the skills for DBT. I think anyone on this training could learn that skill and teach that skill. I taught some of those to my stepdaughter when she was 6, 7, 8 years old. So it doesn't even have to be middle school. It can be elementary school, because kid, even if you're not a teenager, you still face, a lot of mental anxiety. Kids can be mean. And I think some of these of really, I keep repeating it, of not sitting around and ruminating. You can ruminate when you're 5, you can ruminate when you're 50, but if you get up and do something else, it can only help you. And there's not one DBT skill I can think of that you could not teach to a child.
You see any more of those, Barbara, on the chat?
No.
Okay, so I have one. I have one more. So, you see the news sometimes, and and maybe a person has a young man, or has shot up a school, and then at some point, I've heard in the past where the parents were trying to get that child some healthcare attention. Okay. And so if a parent believes that a child is going to do something, do harm to to other people, because they believe that the child has a mental condition, what power do they have to get that child some help if there's a law that says at 13 the child can have their own? The child has sole responsibility.
Technically the courts, if it was extraordinarily serious, the courts can commit somebody. But if I were a parent and I were facing that situation, I would call the King County crisis line, because they'll know legally exactly where to go and who to talk to. I wouldn't go straight to 911. That might be a little much. Someone trained in that specifically is who I would go to. And there is, sorry, my life is kind of acronyms, so sometimes I get them mixed up, but there is a position in King County called a DMHP, which is a mental health professional that in crisis will come to your home. So there are things you can do. There's also a group that comes to your home, and I wish to God I'd written down the name, but as soon as I remember it, I will email you. But there are teams of people that will come to your home and lead you through it. You don't have to be on your own. There's nothing stopping that kid from running out of the house, but there are teams of people that will come to your house in a crisis.
Okay.
And I think being in King County, there are more services in King County. I work in 6 counties, pretty much from Blaine to Federal Way. And there are by far more services in King County than anything. If I'm trying to do something in Skagit, I'm going to have a lot more trouble finding a specific help than I am in King County.
Mhm.
I have another question if there's no one asking. So I'm a child of the 90s or 80s or something like that. Uh, so when I was coming up, African American and minority kids were not known to, I don't want to say not known to, but suicide was a lot less prevalent in those groups. Are you seeing something different? Because I noticed you had a slide earlier that was talking about how minority groups are more affected nowadays in modern days. Is that, did I misunderstand when I was young? Was
And
that
that
just
one was
talk?
being more affected by COVID. They're for some reason are way more likely to lose a caregiver. But it's
Okay.
interesting. I didn't add in the stuff I looked up on suicide or mental health by race because it's a whole new thing, and that would have taken up more time than I had. But I found it fascinating. There's a lot of studies on that. And what I found was the number one racial group that is most likely to commit suicide is Native American.
Okay.
They're really high. And after that was white. And then right around the middle was Mexican American and Asian American. And then below that was Pacific Islander. And so when I presented this to my group yesterday, we talked a bit about this because my one of my bosses is a Pacific Islander, and he said he'd never even heard of suicide or mental health before he moved from Hawaii. And then a lot of the African American people I work with said that was just not a thing spoken about in their household. It is rising in all of those categories. Now, the really interesting thing is, whereas African Americans kids are the least likely to report ideation or to actually commit an act. However, if an African American male does attempt to commit suicide, they are 4 times more likely to succeed. So I thought that was, and it might be more access to lethal means. Or they might just, I don't even, like I told my group, my staff group yesterday, I'd have to read for a long time before I got any sort of concept of why these things are. But it is rising, and in my job, working with the stigma of mental health has been a little harder. In some of my family's meds are looked very down upon, and that's a personal choice. I myself felt I was very against them until I was in my 30s. And then I took a try and wished I'd known about them in my teens. Because in my case, they were very helpful. So when I talk to kids, I just let them know, I like to let them know my own point of view, just because I don't want them to see me as, just someone that went to school for it. I want them to see me as someone that went through it, not through what they went through by any means, because I haven't, but that I went through the therapy and the med use. And I just say, you know what? The coolest thing about if you want to try meds is you try them, you don't like them, you don't do them. It's just giving it a try. Like my stepdaughter didn't, I got her to try them, didn't affect her in any way, and she stopped. And that was her deal. With me, it turned my life around. So I just try to make it very, it's totally up to you, but giving it a try is probably not going to hurt you.
So what about gender? I mean, you're citing data. Are there differences, say, in gender as to
if I remember offhand, I believe girls and women are more likely to have the ideation or try, and boys are less likely to do that, but more likely to succeed in it. And like, I think in the first or second slide, emergency room visits for girls attempting suicide went up 50% during COVID.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can't say what the reason for that is. Maybe because girls are sometimes raised to be more into their feelings, which I think is a great thing, but can also be a rough thing when you're too into your feelings and act on them. But like I said, I worked in the boys unit, and oh my Lord, did we have a lot. Suicide was it was kind of our number one issue where I worked because of the completed ones that happened. And we had three levels of suicide watch. One, like we checked on them every half hour when they were in their room. The second one every 10 minutes. And the third one, they were in a glass room and they had one person that sat there and stared at them. And I only worked with boys, and there was no time that we didn't have boys on some level or another.
Okay. Any other questions of Lisa or comments about the subject matter? Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Really appreciate you, sharing this information. I learned a lot, from just looking at the slides, and even more as a result of your presentation. So thank you very much.
Oh, there was one other comment. You mentioned wraparound support from WISE or WISE. What was the name? That's what she's trying to find.
It's WISE stands for Wraparound Intensive Services. And yeah, all you do, it's capital W, capital I, capital S, lowercase e. You would just look up WISE King County, and the Board of Health or the Health Authority has all the information. And I'd highly recommend it for kids that have a lot going on. I will tell you that the wait lists in King County are not great right now. COVID just took it affected so many youth that they can't hire fast enough. And with the way the job market is right now, trying to get a professional psychologist on your team, the world is an oyster to them. So WISE is having a real hard time holding on to them. But one of the ones I would recommend personally, the YMCA Social Justice Center in Auburn. It's open for all of King County, so you don't have to be in Auburn by any means. And it's very based on, it works with a lot of, what am I trying to say? It works with a lot of African-American youth. A lot of the people that work there are African-American. And I'd say they've been the ones I've been most impressed with. And it's ages 5 through 21. So they can even be over 18 and still get WISE services. Though the Y is specifically for 16 to 21, but all the others are all ages.
Yeah.
At least, okay, it's right there. Okay.
Oh, okay. There was a question in the chat, but David responded, the YMCA Social Justice Center. So, okay. Thank you, David.
Yep.
So,
And then I'd also highly recommend that the Kent Youth and Family Services, their 4-month DBT group, I think could be really helpful for some of your kids that are really going through it.
I want to share a resource that's going to be coming online here in the next month and a half. Last night, the Kent School Board approved a pilot program for a telehealth mental health service that will be open to a few pilot schools at elementary, middle, and high school. Kent Meridian will be the pilot high school. But students will be able to have 24 hours, 7 days a week access to mental health services that can also be accessed in multiple languages. So for our students that would prefer having the conversation in their home language or their native language, they'll be able to have that ability as well, and it will be free for the students. So it's really exciting that got approved by our school board, and it's going to take about 6 weeks to get it up and running. But that's really something neat to look forward to, because our counselors and our staff are really good at working with kids who are having the mental health crises and challenges. But it doesn't always happen Monday through Friday between 7:30 and 2:30. You know, it can happen in the evening and on the weekend. And so this is will be a really neat addition to the services we can provide students.
Wonderful. And WISE is also 24 hours a day access. And it's also they can get a translator in just about any language.
So I'm not sure someone mentioned, do you have resources like that? What is being spoken on? I guess what David was referring to for other districts, or are you aware of other districts that are having a mental health person in their schools, David? Or is this something new?
I would refer to Lisa on that one. I'm only knowledgeable about KM and KST. So Lisa, you mentioned WISE also has a call-in feature.
Yeah, they have a 24-hour crisis person that you can use. Schools, I work with a ton of school districts, and they're all kind of different on what type of staff they have, what type of mental health person. For instance, like I was saying, my stepdaughter's high school, Ingram, has their own behavioral health center that's paid for through, I think, Kaiser or something. So they kind of lucked out with that. But yeah, it's pretty different in all areas. But that's why the things like 211 are really helpful, because you do it by zip code and you can find just about anything there is out there.
Okay. Related to other districts, I would suggest that they would contact their school or their district administration to find out. And then there was one other question to David. Besides KM, what other schools will have the pilot program, the middle or elementary schools are you aware of?
I don't want to give inaccurate information, so I'm sorry that I don't quite remember all of them off the top of my head, but I remember looking at the list and thinking that they listed all of the middles, so all of the middle schools, and then I think there were 3 elementaries, but I can't quite remember of the 30 elementary schools which 3 they chose, but I'm sure the district will soon have the information on their website to make the announcement.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Melvin has my PowerPoint. Anyone that wants it is more than welcome.
I was hoping that we could post it to our website and then we can send it to David. Anyone that's interested, he can distribute it out also.
Cool.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts or concerns?
I just want to say I'm glad to be here, and sorry not showing my face right now, but just glad to be here, and thanks so much for this information. It's really helpful.
Good.
Thank you. And so this is Aubrey. I just want to say I put a survey link in the chat. So if you get a chance, please provide some feedback, some great feedback on Lisa's presentation. Is there anything, if there's any other types of events you'd like to see or any other topics that you'd like us to cover? We have additional events coming up this month, starting on Saturday. If you're interested in that, I put a link to our website as well. I'll post it again. Like I said, any questions, please let us know.
Right. This is our progressive self-care month. That's what I'm calling it, but this was just a start. And then just to look at ways to take care of yourself, communicate with your children, just become more compatible and whole with each other and better understanding. And I'm looking forward to the last 2 weeks in December, correct, Aubrey? We're going to have the meditation sessions that are all online, but it's wonderful to help individuals and gain perspective.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks.
And Aubrey was saying that soon you're going to have one on ACEs, which I would
Yes.
highly suggest. I think it goes along with some of the stuff I was talking about, but gets more into the causes, and I think that will be a really interesting one as well.
Yeah, I'll post that right now. Oh yeah, so if you go to the progressive self-care link that I put, you can get to all of our events. So the next one will be on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. They're expecting another great speaker. It should be a fantastic event.
All right. So thanks again, Lisa.
Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, David, for assisting and help coordinating and always supporting CNC and all our efforts. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for attending. Be safe, take care, and hopefully we'll see you the next time.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. See you,
Thank
Dave.
you. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye-bye, Barb.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Daniel.